Hey guys, Fox here with an updated Strefan list for you guys today. Uh, just figured it's been a while since we posted a video, and I have made quite a few changes to the deck. This is less of a budget version and more of kind of my final version of what I would play. There are a few cards I'll mention at the end of the video that I don't have that I would play if you have them. Without further ado, getting into it, Strefan, Maurer Progenitor is our commander. He's a flyer, and at the beginning of the end phase, you create a blood token for each player who lost life this turn. The blood token is an artifact that you can pay one and tap it, discard a card, sacrifice this artifact, and draw a card. So it's a cycler, which is pretty cool. Helps you see more of your deck. And then his Strefan's other ability is whenever he attacks, you can sacrifice 2 of these blood tokens. If you do, you may put a vampire card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped and attacking, and it gains indestructible on a turn. So it really helps you get out your big vampires for free and just get really huge bodies on the board. And then as far as planeswalkers go, just running the 1 right now. Would kind of like to run the other Soren, the older one, but this Soren's really good. He allows you, his +1 allows you to look at the top card of your deck. You can reveal it and put it in your hand. If you do, you lose life equal to its mana value. His -2 is you create a 2/3 black vampire creature token with flying and lifelink. And then his -7 is he deals 13 damage to any target and you gain 13 life. So that's really good as well if you can ever get that off. Then we're running, for the non-vampires, we're running a few. 1 Reckless Fireweaver just because it synergizes really well with the deck. It says whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. So ideally, you're going to be making 4 blood tokens every turn. If you're maximizing in, your opponents aren't removing your Strefan, so you'll be dealing 4 damage every turn. So pretty cool. Anger, just to give our creatures haste, really good. Has haste itself. We have ways of discarding it with the blood token, so it's really easy to get in the graveyard. And then finally, 1 Marionette Master, really good. If your opponents get low or if you need to kill things. It has Fabricate 3. When it enters, you give it 3 1/1 counters to create 3 1/1 colorless servos. And then it says whenever an artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, target opponent loses life equal to his power. So really good. You're going to be using your blood tokens either from Strefan's ability or from your own ability, or even if your opponent's destroying them for some dumb reason, she would just be dealing massive amounts of damage for you. And then for the vampires, the smaller ones, because you do want to have some early game pressure and not just rely on Strefan too much. Running 1 Knight of the Ebon Legion. You pay 2 and a black. He gains 3 and Death Touch until on a turn. And then at the beginning of the end step, if a player lost 4 or more life this turn, put a 1/1 counter on Knight of the Ebon Legion. So really good. During other players' turns as well. So incentivizes. You get benefits if other players lose 4 life, which is really nice. And then 1 Voldaren Epicure. She says when she enters, she deals 1 damage to everyone, and you create a blood token. So she just gets you a free blood token, which is really cool. 1 Dust Legion Zealot, card draw. When he enters, you lose a life and draw a card. So really good. 1 Scion of Opulence. Whenever she or another vampire you control dies, create a treasure token. So it's good ramp. And then you can pay 1 and sack 2 artifacts, exile the top card of your library, and you can play it this turn. So she can also turn your artifacts into card advantage, which is really good. Then playing 1 Drana, Liberator of Malakir. She's a flyer with first strike, and whenever she deals combat damage to a player, put a 1/1 counter on each attacking creature you control. So you run a lot of creatures in the deck, and you are going to be swinging, so getting those 1/1 counters really adds up. 1 Florian Voldaren Scion. He has first strike, and at the beginning of your post-combat main phase, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the total amount of life your opponent's lost this turn. Exile 1 of those cards, and put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order, and you can play the exiled card this turn. So it's really good. Does not have to be the combat damage you deal, so remember that. So you could deal damage from your Reckless Fireweaver, your Marionette Master, and then just, look at crazy amount of cards off the top of your deck. So like sometimes even 6, 7 cards off the top of your deck and just find that answer you need for problematic cards. Then we're playing 1 Olivia, Mobilized for War. She's okay. Has not been working as well as I've liked, but she's an early game body, so it's not terrible when she's a flyer. She says whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you can discard a card. If you do put a 1/1 counter on that creature, it gains haste until end of turn, and it becomes a vampire in addition to its other types. So it's not terrible. And then we play Stormcurd Captain. He's got first strike, and his anthem is other vampire creatures you control get 1/1 first strike. So it makes your creatures way less harder to block. Then we're playing 1 of the Honey. He's got haste, and whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, you put a 1/1 counter on him, and then you can sack another creature to give him indestructible, which is really good if they try to remove him. Then we play the 1 Sanctum Seeker. Whenever a vampire you control attacks, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life, so it really adds up when you're swinging out with a lot of vampires on the board. The 1 Ange, Maid of Dishonor. Whenever she and or 1 or more other vampires enter the battlefield under your control, create a blood token. It only triggers once per turn, so it gets you another blood token. And you can pay 2 and sack another creature or a blood token. Each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life, so it's really good with Strefan. If you don't feel like attacking, everybody has creatures on board, you can still get your blood tokens for the turn. Then playing 1, the Weird Sisters, aka Enrica Donati. She's a flyer, and at the beginning of combat on your turn, you choose one that hasn't been chosen. Each player sacks a creature, you draw a card and lose a life, or you transform her. In her transformed version, basically she's a flyer, Death Touch, Lifelink. You play 1 and 2 black. Each creature you control with flying, Death Touch, and or Lifelink gets a 1/0 until end of turn. So really good in that aspect. A lot of keywords on her. It's really good. Then we're playing 1 Drana, the Last Blood Chief. She's a flyer, and whenever she attacks, defending player chooses a non-legendary creature card in your graveyard. You return that card to the battlefield with a 1/1 counter on it, and it's a vampire in addition to its other types. So it's really good. We do have like a discard sub-theme. And we also have like a reanimate package kind of in the deck as well, so she's really good. Then we're playing, for the bigger vampires, we're playing 1 Malakir, Blood Witch. Drawn was pretty big as well. She's got flying, protection for white. When she enters the battlefield, each opponent loses life equal to the number of vampires you control, and you gain life equal to the life lost this way. She's really good to drop early. There's still 3 opponents in the game to just get you ahead life total wise. And then we're playing 1 Champion of the Dusk for draw power. When he enters the battlefield, you draw X cards and you lose X life, or X is the number of vampires you control. 1 Olivia's Attendants. She's got Menache, and when she deals damage, you create that many blood tokens, and you can pay 3 and deal 1 damage to any target. So just by herself, you can get 7 blood tokens in a turn, which is really nice. And then Markov Enforcer, really good removal and beater. When she or another vampire enters the battlefield under your control, she fights up to 1 target creature an opponent controls, and whenever a creature dealt damage by her this turn dies, you create a blood token. So she's another blood generator. 1 Crossway Troublemakers, attacking vampire creatures, you get Death Touch, Lifelink, and whenever a vampire creature you control dies, you may pay 2 life if you do draw a card, which is really nice. Then 1 Patron of the Vein. He's a flyer. Whenever he enters the battlefield, destroy target creature and opponent controls. And whenever a creature opponent controls dies, exile it and put a 1/1 counter on each vampire you control. So really good. Helps your board get really scary. Then 1 Olivia, the Crimson Bride herself. Flyer with haste. Whenever she attacks, return target creature from your graveyard to the battlefield. Tapped and attacking, it gains when you don't control a legendary vampire, exile this creature. So really good. 1 Necropolis Regent, it's a flyer, and whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player. You put that many 1/1 counters on it, so it helps your field get really scary. 1 Butcher of Malakir, he's a flyer, and whenever Butcher of Malakir or another creature you control dies, each opponent sacks a creature. And then finally for the creatures, rounding them out, we have 1 Arcana Revenant. Whenever you tap a swamp for mana, you add an additional swamp, and you can pay 1, and she gets 1/1 until end of turn. So really good. And then as far as the other artifacts go, for the ramp artifacts, we're playing 1 Soul Ring from the Commander Collection Black, 1 Rakdos Signet, 1 Everflowing Chalice, 1 Network Terminal, which has really good synergy with the deck. You tap to add 1 mana of any color, but you can also pay 1 and tap another untapped artifact you control to draw a card, then discard a card. So it helps get the cards in graveyard you need for your Olivias and your other reanimate effects. And you run a lot of artifacts in the deck, so really not that hard to get off. And then finally 1 Arcane Signet. And then for kind of the utility and protection artifacts, we're running 1 Lightning Greaves and 1 Swiftfoot Boots. Everybody knows what those do. They're commander staples. And then kind of for the, just cards that synergize with the deck, we're running 1 Glass Cast Heart. Whenever 1 or more vampires you control attack, create a blood token, so it's a blood token generator, and then you can pay a black, tap it, pay 1 life, create a 1/1 white and black vampire creature token with lifelink, and then you can pay 2 and tap it, sacrifice it, and 13 blood tokens. Each opponent loses 13 life, and you gain 13 life. Very hard to get off, but if you do and your opponents forget about it, really good last effect. And then 1 Cryptolith Fragment. It enters battlefield tapped. You tap to add 1 mana of any color, and each player loses 1 life. So really good with Strefan on the field. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, if each opponent if each player has 10 or less life, you transform it. Really never goes off, so really don't worry about that. Then 1 Icon of Ancestry. You choose a creature type. Your creatures of the type get 1/1. Pay 3, tap it. Look at the top 3. Add a creature of that type to your hand. Put the rest on the bottom in random order. 1 Bolas Citadel, just because it's good advantage. And then 1 Belby's Portal. It's an old card, but I love it. It's like a backup commander in the deck if they kill your Strefan too many times. You choose a creature type and you pay 3 and tap it. Put a creature card of the chosen type from your hand into play. So it's basically Strefan's second ability on an artifact, which is really good. Then for sorceries, running 2 Tutors. Thanks to Andy for letting me borrow them. He pulled both of these from packs, so they have really special meaning to him. I really appreciate him letting me borrow them. 1 Demonic Tutor and 1 Grim Tutor. Everybody knows what these do. Really good cards. 1 Pact of the Serpent. You choose a creature type. Target player draws X cards and loses X life, where X is the number of creatures they control of the type. So obviously you're choosing vampires. Also playing Night's Whisper, draw 2 cards, lose 2 life. So really synergizes well with Strefan. And then 1 Damnable Pact. Target player draws X cards and loses X life. And then for board wipes, we're running 1 Toxic Deluge, 1 Vandal Blast for artifact removal. Just be careful. This is more for like when they wipe all your stuff, so you have something to crack back to remove all their artifacts. Obviously don't play it if you have a bunch of your artifacts on board. 1 Olivia's Wrath, really good. And 1 Blasphemous Act, just really good cheap board wipe. And then we are running a couple of reanimate cards, like I said. 1 Reanimate itself, which is really good. 1 Patriarch's Bidding, really interesting card. Each player chooses a type. And then each player returns all creatures of the chosen type to the battlefield. Really good. You usually end up more ahead because you're running a tribal deck. Edgar's Awakening. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, or when you discard it, you can pay black if you do return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So really good. You could, if you cycle it, or even if you just hard play it. Feed the Swarm, destroy a target creature enchantment opponent controls, you lose life equal to its mana value. And 1 Crash Through, just to help you finish out games. Creatures you control gain trample until end of turn, and you draw a card. So it's like a cantrip, but it also gives you creatures trample, which is really nice. And then finally, for instance, playing 1 Infernal Grasp, destroy target creature, you lose 2 life. 1 Hurl Through Hell, really interesting card, really enjoy it a lot. 1 Bedevil, 1 Chaos Warp, 1 Bleed Dry, and then for card draw, we're running a Phyrexian Arena. We're running a Curse of Opulence for some nice ramp. Really interesting card that I like a lot. 1 Molten Echoes. Been working really well. We really don't run a lot of legendaries, so it doesn't conflict too much. 1 Dark Ritual to cheat out our commander sooner. And then 1 Sanctum of Stone Fangs. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, each opponent loses X life. You gain X life, where X is the number of shrines you control. So usually, it's always going to be just 1, but it's still really good for Strefan. And then 1 Faith of the Devoted. Whenever you cycle or discard a card, you may pay 1. If you do, each opponent loses 2 life, and you gain 2 life. So you obviously have the blood tokens to help you cycle, but I believe I have a few lands that cycle in here as well. Then finally for the lands, we are running 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 basic swamps, 3 basic mountains. Just run a lot more black cards in the deck than red. And then for like burn lands, we're in 1 Ramanap Ruins, 1 Tomb of Your Mommy, 1 Cabal Pit, 1 Leechrin Swamp, and 1 Ifnir Deadlands, just to help you get that extra blood token off Strefan's ability. And then for like the dual color lands, 1 Haunted Ridge, 1 Rakdos Gate, 1 Foreboding Ruins, 1 Smoldering Marsh, 1 Bloodfell Caves, 1 Canyon Slough, there's the cycling I was talking about, 1 Temple of Malice, and then just for good like lands in general, running 1 Sokenzong, Crucible of Defiance from Kamigawa, 1 High Brood Pit. You could play it for the land, enters taps for black, or you could play it as Hagra Mauling, and it costs 1 less to cast and playing controls no basic lands, costs 4, and it's a removal spell. So remove on a land spot, just really good, especially if you're in the colors, obviously. Bajuka Bog, just for some graveyard hate. 1 Takenuma, just because Graveyard Recursion was really good in the deck. 1 Malakir Mire, the other side of Malakir Rebirth. Basically, when you give a creature, you lose 2 life to on return. Creature gets, when the creature dies, return to the battlefield. So you give something protection, and it's an instant. So just remember, it's an instant. 1 Path of Ancestry, 1 Voldaren Estate. Really good because we're playing all vampires. Unclaimed Territory. Secluded Courtyard because it's a tribal deck, so it's really good. And then 1 Exotic Orchard, 1 Command Tower, 1 Gaia Reach for some extra card draw. Pay 2, tap it, each player discard or draws a card, then discards a card. Also fuels our Reanimate package. And then finally 1 High Market because we have the space. You can tap it for colorless or sack a creature when you tap it and you gain 1 life. So like if somebody tries to kill something of yours, you could just gain some life back. So it's a nice utility land. But yeah, that's the deck profile. Cards I would put in if I had, I would probably say, can't think of its name off the top of my head, but he spawns a vampire and then he flips and becomes a lord. The Sorin Planeswalker I was talking about, that you can set an opponent's life to the certain amount. Really not too much else I would really want to put in the deck. I'm trying to think other vampires. I think that's about it. There's a few other more expensive vampires that I can't think of right now, but really enjoy the deck still. Let me know if you guys would like to see a Evelyn deck profile. She is the card that came out in New Capenna, Evelyn the Courteous. It's 2 blue, black, red, black. She basically, what she does is she has flash, and whenever she or another vampire enters the battlefield, you exile the top card of each player's library with a collection counter. And once each turn, you can play a card from exile with a collection counter using mana as though or mana of any color. So she's a really cool card. So I'm probably going to convert most of the vampires in this deck to that deck for that profile. So let me know if you want to see that. Still need a few cards for it, so might be a week or two before I can put that up. But thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.